this lesson, you're going to be representing functions as rules and as tables. So let's figure out what a function is first. A function is a rule that establishes a relationship between two quantities, and those two quantities are inputs and outputs. A rule that establishes a relationship between two quantities. And these two quantities are an input and output. Alright, so what does this look like? You're going to have an input, and that's going to be a number. That's going to be your x. You're going to input that into a function, and that's going to be an equation, such as, oh, I don't know, y equals x plus 2. I'm not sure why it's not erased. There we go. Y equals x plus 2. Okay, so you're going to have a number, an input, you're going to put it into a function, which is an equation, it's a rule, and you're going to get an output. An answer or a log. Okay. To solve functions, to keep your thoughts organized, you're going to use a function table or a t-chart. And your t-chart, you're going to have inputs. You're going to have outputs. Okay. The inputs are the numbers you're going to put into the equation. Let's say our equation or our function, let's use this y equals x plus 2. So you're going to take your inputs. They're going to give those to you today. You're going to take your inputs, you're going to put it into the function, and you're going to calculate your outputs. Now keep in mind, these are your x's. 0 plus 2. These are your y's. My input is 1. This time my input is 2. And the last time my input is 3. One more thing you're going to need to know. These inputs have another name instead of input. That name is a domain. The outputs also have a special name, and that's range. Okay, so on your homework, they might give you the domain, they might give you the function. Your job is to complete the function table and put the range or the outputs. Alright, the first thing you're going to have to do is identify a function. I'm going to put a new page for this. The main rule you're going to have to know here is that every input has one output. And you should highlight that, circle it. This is the main point of identifying a function. Every input has one output. Super important. That's how you're going to figure out if it's a function or not. If the input has two outputs, it's not a function. 2 or more, I guess. Alright, so I'm going to do 3 examples. I'm going to show you 3 different types, and we're going to have to decide what they're function. So they're going to give you a function table. And they're going to give you the inputs and the outputs. Let's see, my inputs are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And my outputs are So these are ordered pairs. I'm going to graph them. 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, and 4, 6. Okay, now keep in mind, this right here, these are our inputs down here. And these are our outputs. Every input only has one output. So it's looking like it's a function. Okay? If you don't find the graph useful, here's another visual technique. That function I did at the beginning, that function, I don't know what it's called, machine maybe. If we put 1 into this function machine, you would get a 3. If you put 2 into this function machine, you would get a 4. If you put 3 in, you get a 5. So it's looking like every input only has one output so far. If you put 4 in, you would get a 6. So 3 different ways to see if it's input. If it's a function, excuse me. If every input has one output, you're going to know that it's a function. So my answer to this one is yes, it's a function. Okay, here's another one. Now my input table, this is what they're going to give you. The domain is 1, 1, 2, 3, and 3, 4, 5, 6 is my range. Again, it might be hard to see from the table, so I'm going to use the graph, I'm going to use the function machine, okay? So let's graph it. Again, everything's in the first quadrant, they're all positive. One, 3, 1, 4, 2, 5, and 3, 6. Okay, if I were to draw one of these, I use green. Okay, here's the test. These are your inputs, these are your outputs. This input of 1, do you see how it has 2 answers? It has 2 outputs. I know my line's not exactly straight. This 1 has an output of 3 and an output of 4. That tells me it's not a function. 1 has 2 outputs, a 3 and a 4. Here's another way to test it. If I put 1 into the function, I could get 2 answers. I could get 3 or I could get 4. This input has 2 outputs, so it is not a function. I could list the other ones, but that doesn't matter because I can already tell that my input has 2 outputs. This is not a function. I want you to try this last one. The domain is 1, 2, 3, 4. The range is 3, 3, 4, 4. And in your notes, I want you to make a graph and I want you to make these function machines. On your homework, you would only have to use one method. You wouldn't have to use all 3. Okay. One more thing. Oh, 2 more things. I'm sorry. Next thing is, make a table for a function. They're going to give you the domain. This domain is 0, 2, 3, 6, and 7. And the function is y equals x plus 4. They want you to make a table to find the range, the output. So I don't care if your table's the long way, like we did in the last slide with the t-charts, or if it's the other way, horizontal. I think the book does both. Okay, so these are going to be your inputs. These are going to be your outputs. Remember that your input means x and your y find your range. I want you to try one. This domain is 0, 2, 5, 7, 8. And your function, your rule is y equals 2x. Make a table to organize your thoughts to find your range. Okay. Write a function rule. Your job is going to be to write the function, the actual equation. They're going to give you your chart again of your inputs and your outputs. Keep in mind your inputs are your x's and your outputs are your y's. They're going to fill in all the information. So our inputs are 1, 2, 4, 7, and 9. And the outputs, the range is 0, 1, 3, 6, and 8. Okay, to write a equation, to write a function, to write a rule, you need to figure out how we get from the inputs to the outputs. Okay, sometimes there's more than one way, so you're going to have to test a couple inputs to outputs. From here to here, it looks like I can divide by 0. Nope, never divide by 0, just kidding. Looks like the only way I can do this is subtract 1. 1 minus 1 equals 0. Let's see if that rule works for the rest of us. From here to here, 2 minus 1 is 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. 7 minus 1 is 6. 9 minus 1 is 8. Once you find a rule that works for every input to output, you can write a function. To get y, I'm going to take x and I'm going to subtract 1. From the x's to the y's, I subtract 1. I just wrote a function rule. Your turn. This is your x, this is your y. My inputs are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And your outputs 8, 16, 24, 32. Write a function for this function table. Okay, we covered a lot of topics in this lesson. If I went too fast, please stop and rewatch the video. Also write down any questions that you might have.